I thought I'd do something a little bit different. And like I said, the flower of the month is like violets, African violets, the ones that you have house plants. And play around with them, because when you Google them, oh my God, there's so many different color variations in them too. And if you guys seen my little demo that I did, we did a lot of that in my flower series too. So I'd like to share a little bit about that and invite you to that group if you guys are interested in playing around with more practice. Definitely, it's either more advanced classes that you would take after my program, and or if you've been playing around with a lot of different flowers for a while. Yeah, it's always good to learn all these new different flowers. So yeah, hello. I want to say hello to everybody, see who's popped on. I see Veronica made it, and Miss Penny's made it. She's just starting her level 1. I can't wait to seeing her work. This is going to be wonderful for her. And then we have Chris Boyce. Thank you for visiting from Las Vegas. First time on my live. Thank you for joining us tonight. I hope they can be here. Like I said, follow along. And if you have any questions, definitely we can pick my brain while you're here. And I hope you enjoy what I've got coming on. Like, it's just playing around with Googling pictures and getting inspiration from real plants and real colors. And I like playing with color. If you guys check out my YouTube channel, I've got over 200 videos there that you can see and catch up on a lot of the hot topics that I've done. A lot of it's been on stroke work and color theory and color combinations and quick projects, and I got loads and loads of stuff there for you guys on my YouTube channel. So if you haven't visited there, please, you'll see the link in the feed to take you to my YouTube channel. And so basically that's how you get a hold of me. If you want to email me, you can do that too. mctclassinfo at yahoo.com, and or just private message me through Facebook I'm there all the time, so you can definitely do that. And then what I've got my groups here set up for my program now, I've got it all in Facebook groups, so this way you guys can interact with each other and share your work privately in the group with only the people that are in this program. All right, so this is what I wanted to share a little bit more and remind you guys, if you guys are in my flower series 2, right? Some of you guys have already signed up for it. So what I'm doing as a bonus today for you guys, I got a couple sheets I'm going to probably play around on, and I'm going to pop them in the group for you guys that are already signed up. And if you haven't signed up on it, then definitely there's loads of fun stuff. We were playing on cards. We were making cards, playing around with simple backgrounds for your card stock. And then also we had fun and we cut some out and we made some pop-out cards, and then played around with a full project at the end. So yeah, definitely the five of my favorite flowers out of the year, like larkspur is July. Then lily of the valley, I think, is April. And then paper whites, that's December. It's not necessarily in any order here. Sweet pea, I think, is May. And then violets is February. Right, so we played around with 5 different flowers in that series. So it's a big series, guys. And then with it comes with another full project that you guys can play around with. I played around with some pastes and got a real nice textured background going, and a little bit of a watercolor background that we played around with on that one. And then I combined all 5 flowers in one painting, like a family portrait. So you're not painting people, you're painting the flowers of the month of their birthday. So if your family's birthday is May, June, and August, then you can incorporate those 3 particular flowers. That there's a flower for every month of the year. And like I said, if you jump on Donna's series 2, you'll see and be able to practice the whole year with her. But like I said, I only practiced the 5 of my favorite ones that were kind of a little bit different. And so I hope that you guys will contact me or comment down below, and I can message you more information on how to sign up, send you an invoice, and then invite you to the group so that you can see all the videos are there, all the practice sheets are there you can print out, and then follow along with each of the 5 flowers and the finished project. So yeah, I did a couple of series. That was series number 2, and like I said, I wanted to kind of remind you guys about the series that is available, and then play around a little bit more with the violets with you today. All right, so we got Miss Ann Morgan here. I'm so excited. She's been working through her certification too. She's done her level 1, level 2. Now she's going to be starting level 3. I'm so excited. We're going to have lots of fun. And I think you're set up on the flower series too. So you'll be able to play a little bit more with this background if you haven't, played around a little bit more with adding flowers to make your own family portrait. So yeah, the paste is a lot of fun. Donna's got a lot of new products out now where the colors are right in now as well. So she still has the other paste that's available for level 3. And then these are the new ones that Plaid came out with that have all the different colors. So definitely if you haven't jumped on these, they're a lot of fun. I've got a few more videos on my YouTube channel that if you want to check out. Where I show you guys how I'm playing with them, manipulating them with stencils, all kinds of fun things like my teddy bear projects that's coming up, Teddy Bear Love and Teddy Bear Blossom. So I hope you guys will check that out. Those are 2 free projects that you can check out on my YouTube channel as well, where I did some really cool textured effects in the background. All right, so hopefully you guys will check that out. We got a good gang here tonight. Thank you so much, guys, for coming to join me today and playing around with some violet pansies. Not violet pansies, sorry. That's another course. That's in my course number 6. If you guys are interested in learning more and you need to practice, it's a full guided program, guys, and it takes you through all the stroke work. The first 6 courses is all geared to all the basic strokes, and then we get into all the different flowers and bumping them up and playing around with color theory some more. And this is where we played around with the 5 strokes, 5 petal strokes, the shell strokes. So there's like 11 different centers. We played around with that and lots of fun. And I gave you lots of bonus projects to do throughout too, little mini assignments. And then you'll be ready to really play around with the pansy and the tulips and roses, advanced leaves, poppies. Then I have a whole course just on tiny painting, scroll work, introduction, definitely Donna's got a whole program on with the scrolls in her level 2, but this is like a couple of fun easy projects to do. And then advanced color mixing is definitely where you can really start playing around, and you can jump on that course anytime. You don't have to wait till the end. So, and then we also had to bump things up because people are always learning and they always want to make things harder, right? So this is where I came up with another boot camp of 5 classes that you guys can jump on to go through each of those flowers again, and then bumping them up to another level, and then another full bonus floral wreath that we can do at the end. Lots of curling and back flipping and adding extra colors into things. And so yeah, really today is about the, kind of like that shell stroke, teardrop strokes. This just gives you a little bit more insight about course number 5. We played around with colors, like trying to do, it's a great way to practice your shell strokes, is just get all the different colors on your plate and see how many different gradients that you can come up with, and just practice your shell strokes, with the dark on the outside or the white on the outside. Just keep playing, and you'll start dancing with them and start making all these different wiggles and stuff like that I introduce you to throughout the program. Right, so there's a standard wiggle, and then there's more looser, bumpier ones, smoother ones. So there's lots of things that you can play with, and lots of little centers and ideas that, this basic 5-petal flower is going to evolve and make it look like a poppy, or, it could make it look like a pansy, or it could look like, like a violet that we're going to play around with a little bit today. So yeah, it's lots of fun, guys. I hope that you guys will join me on some of those programs. If you haven't already, definitely give me a little shout out down below if you want to comment how you're liking the program. That'd be wonderful too. And Yeah, so there's always going to be chances to keep playing, and then there's flowers that you don't do very often. You only do them certain times of the year, and then you almost got to play and remind yourself, how they can look a little bit different just by how you play with them. So this is why lately in the last year I've been playing around with the sketch and paint, is because you can definitely just a quick sketch, just a layout. Where do you want it to go? How big do you want to make it? Because I feel like from all the questions that I've always been given, is always something like that, is like, well, how do you lay it out and the design aspect of it, and making room for things and stuff like that. So you can use like chalk or pencil or something like that, something that's easy to erase, and then just guide yourself a little bit, by sketching something out. All right, or make sure that you're comfortable with the size that you want for that project. So if you're doing something small, little mini canvases, or if you're doing something big oversized, right? So you're going to have all the different size brushes that are going to make your flower all the different sizes, and then it also depends on pressure. So again, I want to play around with that a little bit with you guys today, and remind you about that, and different angles a little bit of, is it a side view, or is it back view, or little buds, or your straight on typical flower. So yeah, let's get the paper out and some paint out. You guys can definitely practice with me a little bit today, and if you want to learn more, like I said, there's way more in the full course of violets that is in Flower Series number 2. Alright, so you guys have seen my circles already. I like to make, it's always easier to practice with bigger brushes and then work your way down. Like out of the whole set of 10 that Donna has, there's always going to be your favorite size, and then you're going to push yourself. Maybe it's that standard 12 you're just been practicing with so much, but you're still having a hard time with the 3/4 or the 16. Or getting it down to that number 6 or 8, or even number 2 in some of our kits are. Right, so I've played around a little bit differently with this one here too. I pre-made a bunch of circles. I have this little plastic guide here, and I just went and got a bunch of that would be maybe the size, depending on how tiny I want to get them. So yeah, I'll print these. I'll get these scanned out, and you can, if you don't have one of those, it'll be pre-made for you guys. I'm going to pop it into the group for you. And like I said, the sheets that I make today is going to be a part of that. It's going to be add-on into that group for you guys. So if you haven't played with that series in a while, go back and remind yourself again, and then know that there'll be a couple new things there for you guys as well. All right. So does anybody have any questions about one stroke? Are you challenged in any way? Loading your brush, stuff like that. Like I said, I do have a lot on my YouTube that troubleshoots a lot of basic strokes, and then also brush care. You guys can check out some of my painting hacks. If you don't have it, then come up with something different. So yeah, excited to see you guys all popping in. So we're going to play around with some violet pansies today. I keep saying violet pansies. Violets, period. I'm thinking about the paint. I've got our violet paint color stuck in my head today. So yes, we're going to play with some violet pansy. But we're going to do like an African violet. Alright, so we'll play around with a couple of combinations, but just know that there's going to be more, and maybe different ones that I don't cover today. And we'll play around a little bit more. There's so many colors, like really light baby pink ones, to more blue ones, to more purple ones. I haven't seen too many yellow ones, but definitely into your blues, your pinks, purples. We'll get our cobalt out, And then we can definitely play and make our own purples out of blue. I have a whole video on that. I think we made like 8 different colors of purple, depending on the colors we chose out of the folk art series paints to create more purples. All right, so definitely, guys, if you haven't seen that, you got to check it out. So you can play around with darker colors too to help get it darker, because a lot of these violets are a darker color with not a lot of white. So I'm just gonna put, this is an old bottle, a little bit of dioxine purple, maybe a little bit of Prussian blue, and then to darken our magenta, we'll use a little bit of berry wine. You can also use a little bit of dioxine. Dripping all over the place here, getting all excited. And then, of course, we'll always need some white. And then I'll play around with a few leaves too a little bit later, and we'll add some green later. But we'll just play with these for now. And get a pencil out, and you can rough draft some circles too. Like, you definitely can make some that are going to be a little bit more oval, and some are going to be like a really flat view, where really they're just more triangle styles, right? So those are going to be some exceptions to the rules. But a lot of the pansies too that I've seen is the way that comes up over the stem is they almost look upside down by the time we get to look at them in the plant. Like, they kind of have stem and they kind of curl right over on the top. Right, so you're kind of looking at them. So you get your center here, and your petals are almost like a V on the top, and then your side petals, a 5-petal flower, but just making it different where we're not always putting that starter petal at the top. Right, so then you got your 2 side petals, which kind of go straight out to 6 and 9 o'clock, but maybe a little bit lower. And then sometimes there's a bigger one at the bottom, again, depending on your view. If you make this petal really big, and then these ones a little smaller, these ones are going to definitely make the flower look like it's tilted up a little bit more. Right? So that's one of the notorious things about the violet that I noticed is, that kind of floppiness to the petals, and there's little bits of space in there. Okay, so that's going to be a lot of the shape of it that determines it to be a violet flower, right? Instead of maybe some other flowers that you have in the garden. Right? So that's just like a little quick sketch for you guys. All right, so I'm going to repeat it again so that you have this one in your scan, and then we'll get some paint out and play with this with some bigger brushes, and then we can also play around with some different colors, maybe a little bit smaller. All right, and then I always like to give you guys some blank ones on the side so that you can play around and copy me on the other side when I scan this. You can put this in plastic sleeves. You can practice over some wax paper, so then that way you can wipe it off. Some people are painting a lot on glass, so painting on that slipperier surface is going to give you a little bit more feel like a glass surface would feel. It's very slippy, it's not absorbing the paint. So definitely there's classes on glass paint, there's classes on wood, fabric, and then cardstock has its own challenges too, because it is fairly dry compared to your canvas that you're going to put a background down. It's got paint on it, and when you paint on paint, previously painted items, it's a lot easier and more forgiving than working on cardstock. So just have fun with it, guys. Just play with it and have a little mock-up. If you want to do a canvas and you're not sure how you want to do it, practice on some cardstock and get an idea of the design you want to do, and then repeat it, because it always turns out better the second time, right? So that's what I like to do. All right, so what I'm going to do is try to play around with the illusions of, brush sizes to proportion to what I've done here. If we pushed on this brush flat, right, even with no paint on it, you're going to see how much you can kind of drag your brush and then bring it back down to the center. Right, so you don't want to overwork your brush. It's going to be harder on you to try to get a smaller brush. It's so much easier, guys. Get that brush just a little bit bigger than what you think, and then try to do less pressure. Right, so that's what we're going to play around and focus on, is getting the different degrees of pressure. All right, so we're going to need a tiny little bit of floating medium at times. I always say it's like an as needed medium, because when your paint is all fresh, then a lot of times you don't need too much of it. And if you flatten out your paint, give it a little tap on the table, you can see how it spreads out. It's nice and fresh. If it doesn't move, then it's dry and thick, and you're definitely going to need a little bit more moisture in there. But a lot of times when it comes out of the bottle perfect like this, all you have to do is maybe pre-moisten your brush into some water, dampen it out on a towel. All right, hold it there for a couple of seconds there. I don't have my towel here handy. All right. Double check what you guys can see here. Right, so making sure that it's not soaking wet, like your fingers shouldn't be soaking wet when you come out, but definitely that moisture is going to help the paint to get into those bristles and move, right? So you want the brush to be able to move, because when it's not dry enough, or you only moisten the tip, it's going to be a little bit stiff there in the base. So definitely, that moisture that you put in the beginning, sometimes it's definitely all you need. Okay, so I'm going to play around with some violet pansy here and some white to get my gradient started. And what I like to do is sometimes we'll put even 4 colors into our gradient, right? Not just 2. So I'm getting my half and half gradient going on. My brush is straight up and down while I'm doing it, right? So I can stay consistent to my gradient. If you start leaning back or leaning forward, it's going to shove paint and you're going to lose your gradient. So staying very still up and down while you're going back and forth to blend it in. The first time you load your brush, you definitely need to kind of come back and add a little bit more and really work that paint in. Okay. So we can add a little bit of pink tones to that white. I soften that white a little bit. I'm gonna make sure I don't get too close to my floating medium here. I've actually got some white up there already that's not blending. And then I can also put a little bit of dioxine in the very base of it to deepen the gradient. I can't speak today. Right, so depending on how pink you want it. Right, so being really consistent with your adding colors. Add a little bit more white just so we have more paint. Right, pick up a little bit more. Okay, so we can always focus on 2 colors, and then you can always still pop in those other elements if you want it a little brighter on the edge, or if you want it a little bit deeper, darker in the base. We can always add that later as well, right? So it's always all about options. Okay, so you're playing around with your gradient. And with paper, so you see how it's dry. You might need just that smallest amount of floating medium. so that it helps you slide and absorb. Okay. So just to remind you, like, there's different variations of petals. So you're hardly putting any pressure, you're just guiding the brush around, giving it a little bit of a teardrop shape. You can slightly move your brush a little bit so you have some soft edges, right? Then you can tip a little bit more, come over and add a little bit more white. Right, again, I might need a little bit more paint. Keep adding more paint until you get good coverage. And then if it doesn't give you coverage, you can always go over it again. Right? So I find slowing down is the key too on paper. If you're going too fast, then it'll skip over. Right? So it doesn't matter how much moisture and floating medium you have in there, it's definitely still going to skip for you. It doesn't matter, right? You can add a little bit more medium and you're still gonna have maybe, you know, some dry edges. You know, you're feeling how come it's not going all the way through to finish your stroke, right? So this is where I find that when I was teaching you guys, help me realize this, is because I was trying to slow down so you can see how I'm moving that brush. Very soft movements. Right, if you want to have a little bit of a wiggle in there, right? Nice, quick, short ones. Or do you want it to have, you know, your standard wiggle? Okay, so you see how softer this one is? So it's about pressure. Right, just guiding it and a little bit of movements will give you the really tiny, tiny, tiny little line movements. Okay, so I didn't put more paint in there. Okay, so just wanted to kind of give you a couple of warm-ups here, and we'll come back to this one. So I keep adding the magenta and white, give it a little bit soft pinky look, and then starting, if you're left-handed, then you're going to start maybe over in this one, but I always do it in a left-handed stroke, like a left-handed direction. So I always feel that, you know, there's some southpaws out there that feel like they can't do the stroke. It's all of us have to practice one direction or the other, right? So it's always going to be easier to do one and then harder to do the other. Okay, and then when you're doing it in two different directions like this, you're not doing a pin, it's not going to look like a pinwheel. It's your finished stroke that really helps guide and the eye to help cup that flower, right? So you want to start at the top and work your way under. Right. Then we're going to start at the top, not too much pressure, and then pull through. Right. Trying to keep a half and half gradient. If you feel like you've lost your gradient, then definitely push down a little bit over direct to get that white coming back down again. Right, so you can learn how to control your gradient by the pressure and the direction that you have your brush in. Right. So sometimes we can definitely go and move the paper, make it a little bit easier for you. And then underneath it doesn't really matter if you're right-handed or left-handed. You can definitely do it either way, whatever is comfortable to you. So if it's easier for you to swing it up and under the other way, then definitely you can do that way too. So this looks pretty dark on my camera here. It's definitely purple. It looks a little bit more blue. One of the hardest colors to try to figure out on this camera here. Try to get it a little bit purpley for you. Okay, so that's basically a lot of the structure, and that stem would come up and, you know, kind of come up and under, right? So it would give the illusion of that flower being upside down. Okay. You can do it with blues. I just wiped out my brush. I didn't even wet it with more moisture. Like, I didn't clean my brush. I just wiped out on my towel the excess. Add a little bit more pink. Add more white. And so again, variations of bumpy as opposed to wiggly, right? So you don't always have to do a lot of them. You need a little tiny bit of moisture. Don't do too much. So this is just random soft movement, not really wiggles. I'm gonna put that corner together there. We'll cheat a little bit, doesn't hurt. Right, and then, yeah. So hopefully you can see the difference between the blue and the purple now. Alright, so some can touch, right? So they're going to be dancing in the wind. They're going to be really random type flowers, guys. It's really good to have this random spaces. You know, try not to make them all exact. And then also a little bit lighter white, or maybe you want to have the bigger one at the bottom here, right? So if your flower is a little smaller petals on this side, a little bigger on this side, again, as it starts to make that twist, right? So we'll just let these dry a little bit here. You see that? Come back and check out. At least I'm not the only one who gets paint on her hands before I even get started. Oh God, no. You should see it. I get it up to my elbows. I have a whole wardrobe for painting. So yeah, definitely. You know, you gotta embrace the paint on you. That's part of the fun. So yeah, this is just like a little quick breakdown for you guys to kind of think about the shape of them, and definitely they're not even that big in real life, right? But maybe you're doing an oversized painting and you want to, you know, implement some big guys in there. All right, so we're gonna definitely put that aside for now to dry. And downsize our brush. Right, so I would say, you know, 10s would be a great one to make it a little bit more realistic. Like if you're doing a nice 11 by 14 canvas, you know, you're going to make it at least with a 12 or a 10. And again, the pressure that you do is going to make a big difference too. So it's how big are you, you know, pushing it. Right, so maybe we'll use, this will be 12, this will be 10, and these will be like 6 and 8s. Right, so we'll start off with a 12. Right, and if you have to kind of like remind yourself, you know, give yourself a little sketch so that you can remind yourself. And after a while, when you practice a few times, you don't have to sketch out the whole flower. You know, just putting those little ticks to remind you to give yourself space, right? So you want these ticks to be the very center of your petals. Right, and always bringing it back to that center pivot. Okay, so I'll play around with some pink ones. And some of the ones I've seen, they're just a very, very, very light pink on the edge only. So it's, your gradient is going to be like 80% white, and then 20% pink, right? So some people have like the side load. You can definitely do that with that kind of gradient. You can pick up lots of white and come over and just side load into your magenta. Okay, so again, with hardly any pressure, right? As soon as I put it down, I'm almost finished the size, right? So you're definitely just guiding it to give it a very gentle look. Some are very, very light. Okay, so I'm not going to do a project with you guys today. I'm definitely just want to play and practice and give you guys lots of food for thought. Like I said, Flower Series 2 has full projects in there and a lot more slower process to help you guys learn the strokes and play around with more colors. Right, so you can use the sheet to just kind of come up with as many different color combinations as you can think of, right? So maybe you want it a little bit darker. Right? You can try a couple with berry wine. Right, it's going to give you a little bit softer, not so bright pink. Okay, so I found just the smallest amount of medium in the corner of the brush that is doing more work. Right? And I find some of the berry wines are a little thicker. So I'm just going to do a very small on this side and bigger on that side. Okay, so our side petal is going to be a little bit smaller. And then a little bit more pressure. A little bit more paint on that edge. Right, so don't just stop. As soon as you see that it's not doing good, go back, readjust your gradient, pick up more paint. Right, so you can layer a little bit. We're going to layer a little bit on that one side petal. Yeah, we'll bring that a little bit wider. Right, so that's already giving the illusion of it's going to tip over, right? Let's go back to some violet pansy ones. Right, so I want a dirty white. You can definitely do your standard flower this way, right? With your head at the top. And then your side petal. But what I find it helps to make it look like a violet again is that space. Right? Giving it some air movements. Right? Making sure that you're connecting. Right? So if you have to come back and adjust, it's okay. Add a little bit more to it. And I'm trying to cover the marker too, so you guys don't see that. Alright, so just let it dry, go over it again, or when it's tacky dry. Alright, so you see how much better coverage I got right over that marker. Alright, so just again, it's play and practice. Okay, so again, getting that 10 down. I have a whole, again, practice video on the basic strokes of all the sizes of brushes. You guys can check out too in the Hot Topics. So let's do some blue. And adding some more white. Making sure my brush is straight up and down. I've got a little bit of dirty pink already going on, but sometimes I'll dirty my white right on purpose. Okay, so you guys that are new, haven't seen some of my tricks before, you know, I want to make a very soft blue gradient. Okay, one color with white. Okay, so again, smaller brush, less pressure. Trying to make it come right to that point. Okay, so it's almost like doing a cross and then leaving room at the bottom for your other one. Okay, so violets like to be kooky and all over the place. Okay, so again, if that marker was bugging you, then you can just wait and add more paint and go over it again. So hopefully you guys will share your practice on my paint club group. If you guys are on Facebook, it's a community group. And you guys can share your work on there too with everybody. And then I have the private groups for the programs that I have. Okay, so hopefully you guys are sharing on there. I know it's been pretty quiet in there lately. Hopefully you guys will add some of your practice. And then also on Donna's group, you can play around on there. So yeah, for you guys that haven't seen me playing around with my magenta and blue, try to find a good spot here. So sometimes I'll start off with the blue and then slowly add a bit of magenta, and then you can make your own homemade purple. And so yeah, definitely the whole program has like how we layer flowers together. You know, there's so much more in that program that I hope you guys will jump on. And I'm going to be giving it to you guys for the next 2 weeks till Valentine's Day for half price. So it's usually $125. And I've got a half price special right now to join that private group. And it's to play around with different variations, right? So you want it maybe a little bit more magenta with blue. You want it a little bit more, like, you know, your dirty white can be more blue tone. It could be more pinky tones, right? So just go ahead and play around with a lot of variations and then come back and then play with all your centers. Right, so the bigger the flower, obviously you can get more detail, right? So, all right, and some of them have these different variations of blues and purples. Right, and then you have a dirty brush going on, and then you start picking up, you know, a little bit more of different colors. Right, you get different variations. Right, so I need a little bit more white. Tip every time, and then some of them have just that little bit of a line of white at the edge. So you want that dirty color, and then tip or side load into it to pick up just that little bit of fresh white. A little bit more magenta. So what do you think? All right, so that's your size 10. Yeah, definitely, guys, if you want to learn more and you want to teach, you love, doing paint parties, stuff like that, just want to bump up your game, level 1 is available. I got 1 spot left. I've got 2 spots available on sale for level 2. Level 3 is now gone. I had 2 spots, they're both taken. And then I still have 1 spot for oversized. If you guys are interested in jumping on any of Donna's certifications, they're her certs, her programs that I help you and I teach with you and guide you through all the whole process. So if you want more information on certifications, definitely comment down below or email me at mctclassinfo@yahoo.com. And I'll be able to send you some more information. All right. Oops, you don't want to see me, you want to see my plate. Okay, so these ones are a little bit smaller than these ones. Right, so again, you can try and put more pressure. I didn't use the 8, so maybe the 8s you can use over here, but we'll get down to that size 6. All right, so I'm going to moisten my brush. And let's play around with some magenta. So very, very carefully, I'm putting my smallest little tiny brush in the corner. And I really go over flat, like you try to get your brush in flat, not so much up and down, so that you're getting the color right up the side of that brush. Right, so you don't have to touch the silver ferrule. You just want like at least 3/4 of that brush loaded. Right, and then how I like to do my tiny brushes is side to side. So I'll press my brush one way, I flip it over dark to dark, add a little bit more white, and blend my brush in from side to side. Okay, so you can double load your brush. Come over and load up with pink, and then side load too, very gently, just tiny little strokes. It depends on your gradient, but if you want a half and half gradient, I find it's a little easier to get over here on the side, and you can focus on that a little bit better. Okay, so we'll try this one here. It's just, I think it's a little bit bigger than that one. All right, so not very much pressure. And then you can come back in your gradient pile. There's usually more than enough paint right there to come and refresh your brush again. Right, maybe add a little bit more fresh white. You don't need to move it too much, but it is a little bit tricky with a tiny little brush. Right, just a little bit of pressure and guiding. Right, so there's a little bit more translucent color. And then I'm going to go over it to hide the marker. And just come over and add a little bit more fresh white on the edge. I'm not even adding more pink, I just want to get a little bit more coverage. Okay, so that's how I would do that. Wipe off a little bit of pink and come in here and add purple to your pink. Some of my program will help you make tiny little roses. Lots of daisies, like all of the strokes and main flowers to learn. A little bit more white. Okay. The blue. So if you notice, I went to the darkest color last. I did the pink, then I did the purple, and then I did the blue. Right, so then that way it's easier to keep using your same gradient pile. You get lots of different variations. When you're making your clusters, like your little plants, you can make a variety of different colors. Okay, so those are little tiny ones. Alright, you like that little live, Paula? Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, so a lot of centers can be very easy. Like I said, when you're doing big ones, then you can definitely try and get a little bit more detail in them, and depending on how dark you have them, what you want to do to bump them up, you can definitely go and add, we'll get our size 12 or 16, something a little smaller than what you used originally. Alright, so I like going in and adding a little bit of floating medium to one corner. So that is no color, but it is still liquid in movement, and this floating medium is in the paint, right? So it's a one color gradient that I try to do and just get the very edge on the top. I know it's kind of hard to see there. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that if I wanted to pop up and bump up any of my flowers, that I can always go around, grab a little bit of fresh white, and then add a little bit more brightness to the tip. Right? You don't have to do all of your flowers once it's dry. You know, the ones that are closest to you, you can just add a little tiny bit along the top of the petal. You don't have to go all the way around. You maybe want to lighten this one up just a little tiny bit so that it'll stand out, you know, a little bit more because you layered over another petal. Right. Usually the sun is your light source, and it's usually like from the top, right? So you can definitely come over and just kind of lighten up just a little bit and let it fade off. Right. Some violet pansy centers are like really dark, right in the center, so you can definitely just kind of loosely pop in a little bit more depth around your center, and then do a reverse shading same way, just with a little bit of floating medium and a little bit of color on the other side. And then just come in and add a little bit more streaks with your dioxazine or Prussian. Right, just adding that little bit of depth, the same color as your center. Right, so if you have more purple, you can add a little bit more violet pansy or berry wine, you know, different shade to complement it. Right, adding just that little bit more interest around there. So the smaller you get, you won't be going into a lot of this detail unless you're really crazy like me, and I probably would. Alright, so you can definitely come in. I'm going to leave this one blank for you so that you guys can see, you know, that there's some that are just the petals. Alright, so you can definitely come over and add that, just that little bit more bump. And the more you go like this, the more it looks like tiny little streaks. So you don't have to use your liner brush. You're just going to use your flat brush and chisel it around Alright, so we do similar to this with our violet pansies, or regular pansies. Right. And then you want to pop something in a little bit brighter. Right, so I'll try to keep these guys' lives for you a little bit quick. I just use the corner of my brush sometimes and just add a couple dots to the center. Right. But if you look at them really good and close up, there's actually a little tiny dark stamen on some of them. Right, and if it went, you know, up in your space, then you might see it. Okay, so just a quick little center there. And then if you guys wanted to play around with your leaves, like I said, there's a full program sharing that as well. You always want to try and use a little bigger brush for your leaf than you did for your flower. So it depends on what you use for your flower. Then you want to use one size bigger. Lost my brush. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly find a spot here. Standard citrus. You can use something a little softer too, because now we have fresh foliage. It's quite nice too, it's a little softer. It almost has like a little bit of blue in it. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay. So you've got your, if you don't have this color, you're going to add a tiny bit of cobalt into your thicket. And just a tiny bit, because if you put too much, then you'll end up making a peacock. Right, so you can definitely go and add that little bit more blue into your thicket, and then you can also add that tiny little bit of blue into your citrus. And that'll cool things down. Oops, I want the dark one. I want the cobalt in the citrus. Okay, so just a little tiny bit will dull it down and be very similar. Never exact, but very similar. And then if you want to lighten things up, then we're going to add a little tiny bit of white. Okay, so I love color blending and mixing and getting more unique colors. So the thing about the leaves too, if you look at them, they're really kind of round. It's just to give you a quick sketch of one, and it's good to try to put something down. It's almost like an egg, guys. All right. So you want to have some different ones. Some might be a little bit longer and skinnier, but it's a very soft top. It's not a point like most leaves are. Okay, so I'll do a couple for you here quick for an example. Okay, so you have your stem coming in the middle. All right, leave one for you to practice on. Okay, so again, I don't even know if this brush is big enough. I could probably use my 16 so I don't overwork it. Right, and a lot of them are very dark leaves. So you want to have the dark on the outside. And your gradient should be a little bit more light green with it, and then maybe more dark on the edge. So you see more light green in there. Right, so I'm trying to follow that egg shape and then come around the side. So it's a little bit rounded. Right, so even for me, the first couple times I haven't played with this in a while, you know, it's good to have that quick little sketch of the shape that you're looking for. Right, so then you can follow it and learn that shape. Right, and then if you have my sheets, then you can also use them to practice right on top of them. Okay, so it's a little bit more of a rounder leaf. And then it's got a rounder top to the top part. So again, if you need a little bit of movement, sometimes it's just on the edge of the brush that's doing more work. You see how I'm not moving much of the light green, but the dark green is definitely doing more work. So if you're comfortable, you can go all the way around the edge, add some more paint, and then work your way down. Or if it's easier for you, start at the bottom and work your way up at the top. Okay, so then a little bit of a stem coming through. And carry on and have fun. Create your violets with. Okay, so there's some with the dark on the outside and the dirty white with magenta on the inside. Okay, so I played with a couple different variations in the practice program. Alright guys, keep commenting. Share my video if you like, that would be wonderful too. Catch the replay, please let me know you've seen the replay. And happy creating. And I'll scan all these and they're going in that private group to add on. Okay, so I know you guys that are already signed up, a lot of you are here tonight, so you're gonna get a couple more bonuses to kind of play with these again, okay? Alrighty guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight, and I can't wait to see you guys again, always the last Tuesday of the month, and I will let you know, follow my page for more information. If I can get you guys a new project coming, I'll post it on my page and let you know when it's coming, okay? Alrighty, you have a good night, and we'll see you guys soon.